There's been so much hype over the past 24 hours for Marvel Rivals fans, and I'm hoping today to stoke the fires even more, because what I have here is a really official looking leak for Ultron. Now, we don't know any of this, if this is official, but based off of where this came from and based off of the fact that, well, the last leak that we got from this source is accurate. It's in the game right now. It's called Human Torch. I'm willing to believe that this indeed will be the Ultron that we are going to get within Marvel Rivals. Well, let's not dilly-dally too long. I want to talk about some of the broad stuff, and then we'll focus in on each of the specific abilities. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm misreading something or if I should be taking a larger grain of salt with any of this. And of course, subscribe. Let's get into it here. So first and foremost, we know that he's going to be a strategist. So he's going to be some type of support. But I really need you to keep in mind that support here is not the accurate depiction of what the strategist and Marvel Rivals are. And this is even more true for Ultron, because Ultron is the first of his class. He is not like any of the other supports that we have, although I'll do my best to draw some comparisons to the other supports. He is very much a strategist. So let's talk about his primary weapon. His primary weapon is the Encephalo Ray. It simply has the description of unleash a burning energy beam. Now, what we know about this is very little. This screenshot here is the best that we have, but being that we can judge him loosely off of how the other supports in the game work, it's a pretty safe bet to assume that this is probably going to be all right damage, pretty decent damage, but not the best damage overall. Although I do have some suspicions, which I will talk about later, that this might be a close range weapon, something that is meant to be used within most tanks distances. But again, we'll get to that, all right? We'll get to that. His first ability is Dynamic Flight. Fly quickly in the direction of movement and then enter a free flight mode. This, at first, seems like something that you might see with like Star-Lord, where he's able to boost from point A to point B with, you know, whatever he wants in between, and he has a little bit of probably an energy meter that he can have on cooldown in order to, you know, guide himself for his distance and his speed and so on and so forth, right? But that second part really makes me scratch my chin. And then enter a free flight mode. This leads me to believe that he not only has Star-Lord's basic boost from point A to point B type movement, but also a movement on the end of it when he effectively releases this ability that allows him to fly around just like how Iron Man, Storm, or Human Torch might be able to, which does tie in pretty decently well to his passive, Algorithmic Correction. Hold space to fall slowly, something we see on a lot of characters here, but my thought is that he's probably going to have a meter that allows him to boost just like Star-Lord, and then once he releases it, the meter will be consumed much slower, and during that mode, he'll be able to move around like the aforementioned characters, and then when he's done, he can use the Algorithm Correction passive in order to fall back down to the ground in order to keep himself out of danger. So maybe not a true flyer, maybe not a true omni-movement characters like those three other characters, but something very, very close. All right, his second ability here is Imperative Patch. Command a giant drone to follow an ally, constantly healing allies within its radius, with additional healing for the designated target. Now, everything about this just oozes a puppeteer playstyle, a summoner type playstyle, which will be even more revealed throughout the rest of his kit. This ability is something that makes me think of a mix between like Loki and Mantis. Loki in that it is something that he is doing outside of himself, another entity that is he's sort of soft piloting, and Mantis in that he chooses a target with which he wants to heal, and that target just constantly gets healing. Of course, the difference here being that it can probably, at least I would assume, be shot and stopped. And it's also interesting to note that this is something that focuses in on one particular ally like Mantis and heals that target presumably decently well, but also has a sort of AoE in its description, meaning that this is likely both a soft team healer as well as a focused healing, something that we don't really have in the game right now, something that's not quite in the same capacity as this, which I love. All right, this is where things get interesting. His third ability, Imperative Firewall. Summon drones to grant bonus health to allies within range, centered on himself, and the ally marked with the Imperative Patch. Now, with all of these abilities combined together, this leads me to believe that Ultron, besides being a summoner like we already discussed, is going to be the first of his kind that is a Omni class, a class that is, or a character I should say, that is designed to do everything: tanking, support, and DPS. Of course, we don't know if his Encephalo Ray is decent, but I'm willing to bet that it is based off of how this kit is shaping up. I'm willing to bet that he is going to play like a mix between a tank and a support with that little bit of DPS mixed in between, because we don't have those sort of bridge characters between the tank and the supports. We have bridge between DPS and tank with Mr. Fantastic. We have a bridge between DPS and support with Mantis or Storm, if you want to call her that, but not for those other two, not for the tanks and the supports. So this makes me think that the developers are trying to develop Ultron into being this bridge, into being this multi-classed character, which is so freaking cool. And it's even cooler that we don't even need to wait that long, because we know, based off of what the developers told us, at least at the time of this video, not even 12 hours ago, that the updates and the new characters are going to release basically every month, which is insane. So we might get our hands on Ultron sooner rather than later. But of course, we still have his ultimate. His ultimate is called Rage of Ultron. Summon Ultron drones to fire Encephalo Rays, damaging enemies and healing allies. So the way that this is described makes me think that this is not something he's going to be able to control directly. It's going to be very different than anything else we have in the game. These are going to be drones that are going to be piloted by some form of AI, is my idea here. My thought is that this is going to basically hijack the AI that the game already uses for bots, and this is going to allow these drones to make decisions on their own. If an ally in front of them is hurt, they will heal. If an ally in front of them is full health, or if an enemy nearby is damaged, they'll try to deal damage, which is so freaking cool. I wonder how all of this will work with the rest of his kit. I wonder if Imperative Patch or Imperative Firewall will work with the Rage of Ultron, as that's something that we see happen pretty often within the game, is the ability to mix and match abilities within an ultimate in order to make it even more effective. But that's all we have for him. We don't have a team up. We don't even know his health bar. We know very little about him other than these abilities. So do me a favor and let me know in the comments who you think he is going to team up with. I'm willing to bet if somebody were careful enough, we could probably figure it out, because the way Marvel Rivals devs work, at least with their team ups, they've already made it clear that they try not to have too many people represented within their team ups, which means that somebody is probably missing a dancing partner. Who is it? I don't think it's Emma Frost, because she's got team ups with other characters. Will it be Ultron and Iron Man, or somebody else? That's the obvious one, right? But let me know. Subscribe in the meantime if you guys enjoy this type of content. Bless your faces, and deuces.